Today I want to show you a sample chopping technique I call the micro gap trick. It's inspired by Daft Punk. It's a tiny detail, but it makes a massive difference to the groove and bounce of your tracks. And it works for any genre that uses samples: house, hip-hop, D&B, bass music, whatever you make. Okay, to show you how this technique works, I've made this short sketch here. It's got a homework era kind of feel. So it's based on this long sample. I've loaded that into a simpler here and I've set it to slice mode, and then these are the MIDI notes playing back the slices. As you can see, a lot of these notes are moved ever so slightly off the grid. I like to do that just to get that hand-played MPC kind of feel. So this sample channel is grouped into a bus, and we've got a sub-bass here as well. And then there's sidechaining on this bus, standard stuff. So this is all great, but it's definitely lacking groove. There's something missing here for me. If you look here at the MIDI notes, you can see that all these notes are full length. They're all touching each other. There are no gaps at all. It's all a bit drony and a bit sustained. So the first thing we can do here is we can shorten these notes. So if I go into the simpler here, you can see I've got it set to gate mode. And now I can shorten these MIDI notes to add some gaps in there. So that's definitely adding something to the groove. I'll play it for you with the gaps and without. And what you might want to do in this situation is adjust these gaps note by note, so they're all a bit different and they all sound a bit more organic. So anyway, this is the basic method of adding some groove to a chopped sample, but there is a downside. You may have noticed it already. So if I just make these gaps a little bit more obvious, if I go into this sample channel, I've got this delay effect at the end of the chain. This is just adding some stereo width, a little bit of echo, gives it some character. And the problem is that this stereo delay is filling in these gaps. It's smoothing them out, and that's not really giving us that choppy, sampled, old school Daft Punk feel. One solution could be, I'll turn off the delay. Nice and easy. Turn it off. But the problem is, I like the delay. It's adding something that I like. That's why I put it there. So if I play without the delay, it all sounds a bit too dry. So I want the delay on. It's giving it a nice character. So what's the solution? Well, this is where the micro gaps trick comes in clutch. So let's undo back to the long notes. So here's what I've done on this group containing the sample and the bass. Remember, the sample's got the delay on it, so it's then feeding into this music bus. And here I've got this gain effect. And what I'm doing, if I open the automation, you can see I've drawn in these tiny gaps of silence at the end of the sample chops. So you can see this is where the new notes start, and this is where I've drawn the gaps in. So let's have a listen to that in context. So I'll turn this on and off. It's making such a small difference as these tiny little pockets of silence just at the end of each note. But these small details have such a big impact on the feel and the groove. It makes it sound so much more like a chopped sample that's been chopped on a sampler or MPC, that kind of feel. Now I actually think here I could refine this a bit more, because it's almost like juggling this micro tension and release in the chops. It definitely feels like here at the end, these end sections of sample, it feels like these gaps here are a bit too long. These gaps create a bit more tension, and then we want to release some of the tension by having very small gaps, allowing the sustain of the sample to come through. So I'm just going to draw these a little bit more. There we go, I like that. Now, in terms of automating gain, you can obviously use just your basic utility device. But here I've used an audio effect rack. And what I've done is map macro 1 to the chain volume. And I've also restricted its range here. So it goes from maximum to minimum. And that just makes it easier when you know you want to go from full volume to silence. So automating a gain plugin is the free way to do this. My preferred method is using Volume Shaper in ShaperBox because you've got the oscilloscope running behind. So it's just a lot easier to see where you want to draw in these gaps. And also because these small changes in length make such a big difference, you can have different setups and switch between them. So I'll jump between these now and you'll hear the difference it makes to the groove. In Ableton Live, another thing you can do is go into the clip envelope area and you can go down here and select what you want to automate. Now, what you can automate is if you automate the mixer track volume, then what that means is you can automate the volume post effects, so that'll be after your delay. The only downside is the fact that you're doing this on the individual track, and I do like having the control over the entire bus because you can, it doesn't matter what layers you've got inside the bus, you might have multiple layers, your bass might be quite sustained, so it's nice to be able to chop those holes all in one go across different tracks on the group. And here's another example I made for this tutorial. It's the same notes but a different sample, and I'm using this phasery filter from the drop. And then just for fun afterwards, I'm filtering the notes of the sample. I tried to mirror the pattern of the chops just to get that filtered disco feel. So here's another example I made. This one's a hip hop beat. Now I'll solo the sample and play it without this automation on here. And I'll turn it on. If I play it in the track, I will turn this gain automation on and off. So this micro gaps trick works great for hip hop, obviously works well for anything like J Dilla or DJ Premier style sample choppy kind of hip hop, but also this kind of more moodier stuff too. And this micro gap trick works great in any electronic genre. So here I've got this example, it's kind of jungle drum and bass. And on this track down here, I've got a chopped up pad and it's been sliced up into MIDI here. And then on the track, I've got Volume Shaper and I'm punching these holes at the end of each slice. So I'll play it to you with it off and then on. This micro gaps technique is just the start. There are a whole bunch of other tricks I use to bring my drops to life. And you can watch a full track breakdown right here. Comment down below what you want to see me cover next, subscribe for more, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.